Welcome back. Next we're going to focus on removing the exhaust. Now this is one of the things that kind of gets in the way of everything in my opinion, so we're going to start there. Sure, everything on the bike needs to come apart, but I feel the exhaust is really going to be in my way because I do want to remove the forward controls and I can't do that with the exhaust in the way. So we're going to start here. We're going to walk through that process today. Now looking at the exhaust itself, you can see that there are some exhaust shields. These are chrome, these are super nice. These do get in the way. There are some screws on the back side that you can loosen and then pull these shields off. So we're going to start with those, and then there are 1/2-inch nuts on the front and rear exhaust. You actually can't get to those you can, but you really can't get to them in a good way. So this shield needs to come off in order to get those removed. So we're going to start here. We're going to remove this shield real quick. Now there's two ways to go about removing these clamps. You can use a flathead screwdriver or you can use a ratcheting wrench. It's a 5/16 nut on the end, so we're going to use a ratchet just because it's easier to get into. And some of these are not tucked away the best. They're kind of in the way of different things, so it's easier to get in here with a ratchet. Now a lot of time what you'll run into with these clamps is they'll break off. That's because they get hot and then they cool and they get hot and then they cool again. And they get brittle and they break. I've snapped a few of these off, so unfortunately these will have to be replaced. What you're doing here then is you'll pull the exhaust kind of out of the way. Now I'm not going to take this completely off. I can, but that would require removing the lower bracket, and we're not quite there yet. But I had just enough room to be able to get a wrench into the head here and go ahead and remove these nuts. Now on the cylinder head itself, there's two nuts. There's two studs and then two nuts that hold the head pipes in place. So there's one on the front here and then there's one underneath. And what you'll need to go ahead and get like a wobble socket or something with a hinge to it so you can get in on those and be able to loosen them. I'm going to do it with the impact. I know it's not the right way to do it. I can do it with a socket wrench. Sometimes that works really well, but we're going to hit it with the impact. Now with these two exhaust nuts here, what they do is they hold a flange in place and they kind of sandwich everything together against the head. You can snap these bolts off or these studs off inside the head. So you want to be a little careful with this sometimes. I know an impact's not the best way to do it, but I know that this exhaust wasn't put on too long ago and this bike is a little mileage. Now we're at the rear head here and we're going to do the same thing. There's two studs, one at the top and one at the bottom, and we're going to get on them with the impact. Again, with this guard out of the way, it's a little easier to get to things. One of the common things that I find on these is this bottom stud is typically loose on any application. I've seen this on shovel heads, I've seen it on Evos, and again on the Sportster. This bottom nut itself was actually very loose. It was pretty much hand tightened on there, so someone did not snug that in properly. From here, we need to go and move to the lower bracket, and for that, I'm going to move the camera to the other side of the bike and kind of show you how this thing is hooked up. This is your lower mounting bracket for your exhaust here. This is pretty common on Sportster models. You'll see this, I'm not sure when they started this, I believe 86, maybe later. I'm not totally 100% sure, but you'll see this where there's two studs here that mount to a bracket that runs to the rear exhaust. Now obviously this bracket's going to be different because this is a different exhaust system, but anyway, this is where this bracket hooks up here. There's two Allen heads here, and then there is two 9/16 nuts on the other side. The Allens on this application are a 5/16, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hold my wrench in place and get these zipped out. In order to separate the two exhaust pipes here, there is a set of bolts on the back side of this bracket. They're both a 1/2-inch bolt, so there's one up here and one on the bottom. So we're going to focus on this rear one, which is the top one first. We're going to loosen this up, and then we should be able to pull this top exhaust. I'm just getting in here with a ratcheting wrench. This seems to be the easiest spot to be able to get into this way. So I'm going to go ahead and loosen this up. And with that loose, I should be able to remove this rear exhaust. With the rear exhaust out of the way, now it's time to work on this front exhaust. We need to go ahead and remove our bottom two bolts that run through the bracket itself. That way we can pull the actual exhaust off. So I'm going to get those out of the way now. And just like that, the exhaust is out of the way. Now I can focus on these forward controls. Now this works in the application of forwards or mids because the exhaust typically runs right across this stuff, so there's no good way to get to it without removing it as far as I remember. Anyway, I wanted to take that stuff off so I could focus on this next because these are parts that I don't need. So we'll go to the forward controls next, and then from there I'm not sure. Of course, if you want to watch this bike come apart, you're going to want to be subscribed to my channel. So hit that subscribe button. I've got a lot of parts left on this thing, and it's all coming apart one piece at a time. Of course, if you like the video, give it a like, give it a thumbs up. We'll go ahead and show you the ins and outs of removing all these pieces, and hopefully you'll find this helpful. That's it for this one. Quick, easy video. Obviously, removing an exhaust can be pretty easy. It also can be very difficult depending on how long the exhaust has been on the bike. Today, thankfully, this one didn't fight me that much, so it was pretty easy to take apart. Anyway, friends, that's it for this one. We'll catch you next time.